Welcome to the podcast here on Pollute Your Soul. We're here with the amazing Chris Von Hoffman, amazing filmmaker, director, and writer of Drifter, Monster Party, and now The Devil's Workshop, which is his latest film. How's it been going, bud? How you been? What's been going on?
Been pretty good. Been pretty. I've been sick a lot this year, so like this year has been kind of a sort of a bit of. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit sick right now. Like hopefully it's like the last time before the year ends. So I've been like super stuffed up, and my girlfriend got COVID as well. So so it's there's been a lot of sickness in the last like few weeks. So yes. So yeah, but but still, I mean, as far as like happiness, that's all checked in. I mean, I'm fine with, I'm happy. I'm productive. It's just been sick a lot this year.
So,
So
when did you kind of go? You're back in Jersey, right? Because you're from Jersey, and now you're,
uh
or
no,
was
I'm in New
that?
York now.
Oh, you're in
I'm
New
in New
York,
York now.
yeah. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
did
I'm from New Jersey.
you're from Jersey, you were in
Mhm.
LA, now you're in New York. So why was there the move to New York? Was it like a business decision or why'd that happen?
Well, I mean, like the pandemic was like a big reason. I mean, like when the pandemic happened, like Los Angeles was just like on fire, and then the moment you move back to the East Coast, then all of a sudden like New York was like on fire, like so it was like kind of like awkward timing. But I mean, Los Angeles, I mean, I just kind of like did everything I need to do out there. I mean, it wasn't really, it's not. I mean, I still keep in touch. I mean, I have a lot of friends out there, and I still work with people out there. It's just I don't know. I mean, like Los Angeles. I mean, I what I like about New York City is that it is very entertainment industry driven, but at the same time, like that's not all there is to it. Uh it's not like Los Angeles where it's like, the fucking like barber that's cutting your hair has like a script in their back pocket, so it's just kind of it's that kind of atmosphere really gets old after a while, and it makes you it makes the whole thing feel very unimportant when like everyone out there is doing it and everybody thinks there's some sort of celebrity out there. It just makes the whole process of it feel unimportant. So like when you're in New York City, you kind of get that reality check that like there's not really that this stuff is very interesting that you're doing, like writing screenplays and like developing movies, but there's so much else going on in New York City that people are doing, and it's like that I found a lot more rewarding in the long run to kind of expand my palette. And there's still like people. I mean, there's still like hardcore cinephiles in New York City for sure. But I just like the culture and the atmosphere way more. And LA is just kind of, I was there for 8 years. It's like I did what I needed to do out there. I mean, I didn't really know what more else there was, so.
You paid your dues, you like you yeah, my mom kind of tells me about like how she had to like, work for this. She had to go through like a rough patch and just like grind it out, and then she was able to like move her business to wherever she wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Because she got all the connections she needed, type shit. You know what I mean? I respect that. Now, you've been on a roll lately. You how many films was that in the last couple years? You did Phobias and then Devil's Workshop. Phobias you had a segment of. So Devil's Workshop, I liked it a lot. I want to know, like, when you wrote it, were you coming from the actor side of you or the screenwriter side of you with that? Because there's a lot of it's about an actor in it. So like, what side of you did that script come from?
Well, I mean, I mean both, but I think I start off as, technically I started off as an actor, and I was definitely, probably more friends with actor people than like, technical the camera operators or something. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of like techie people, but I think most of my friends are people that either start out as actors and are now something else, or people that are primarily actors and that's what they still do. I just like that whole world is kind of interesting to me. Like I've just I worked for like a Broadway theater company for a while, so like I was around so many of these like aspiring actor people, and I was one of them for a while, and so I just doing all the plays and being around the theater scene, I mean, I've just been aware of how kind of ridiculous some actors' personalities can be, and how serious they take themselves, and how they treat like their pursuit is like the end all or be all, and if it doesn't happen, by a certain time, like they'll just like kill themselves, like just how extreme they are with their dreams or whatever. I just think that's kind of such an interesting world to sort of satirize, and I won't say like make fun of it, but like it's just kind of it is kind of it's just such a just some of the stuff that they go out of their way to do. I mean,
Yeah.
actors when they're starting out, like they will do anything. Um,
Yeah.
at least from my perspective. And you know, when actors are in their certainly when their actors are getting into their 30s, like that's a whole different kind of weight to carry as far as like struggle is concerned. So that's why I like the characters who are in their 30s. It just makes it even I don't know even more. I just yeah I don't know. I mean,
Laughable
it's just
about the
much more
satire.
yeah that they're still going for it and they still think like but they're also that I guess like that's the joke, like one person who's quote unquote really successful on like TikTok or whatever, but and he's really good at like self promoting himself, but like the actual craft that he exudes is he's shit. He's shit at what he does. But then, as far as like an actor is concerned, then the other guy who's like all about acting, all about the craft, but he can't get any success. He just like because he doesn't know how to market himself. I feel like that's I just feel like that's what Hollywood's kind of like, where most of the people that are it's just all about how you market yourself.
I know a dude who like I mean, I get what he's doing, you know what I'm saying, but he barely has any like screenwriting experience, and he's like selling like screenwriting courses and shit, and he's like more known for screenwriting courses and like I don't know, it's all like yo, like you have like 3 credits and they're like short films, yo. Like
Well, like
like
the
what are
guy,
you doing, yo?
the guy that wrote that movie Battlefield Earth, um, which is I mean you know about that film, right? Battlefield Earth,
Wasn't it like really
like
bad?
yeah, I mean it's like notorious for being like so bad it's good. I mean I've never actually really seen it, but it's like notorious for being like one of the biggest pieces of shit ever made. And the guy that wrote the film has never done anything since, and this was like 23 years ago. But he's on these film courage videos constantly. They get tons of views, and he's like instructing aspiring writers how to construct like a story. And I just think it's interesting that like that guy is like known for being like the screenwriter of the worst movie ever made. So I just
Yeah.
think that's kind of funny that he's like teaching the fundamentals of storytelling.
And on the note of like the satire in the film that you just did, um La La Land, I was having a conversation. I was on a date, and I want to know your opinion on this. People that are like kind of entertainment like industry interested or in the kind of lane of that stuff love La La Land. But when you meet someone who like works at a Starbucks, they don't give a fuck about La La Land. They don't care about the characters or what they're doing. It's kind of interesting to me because like when I heard someone's perspective from somebody that has no interest in the entertainment industry, they don't think the characters in La La Land are interesting or their motivations. It's like, what did you think of like La La Land specifically? I think you I don't know what your opinion might be, but what do you think?
Yeah, I did see in the theaters. I like I mean when I watched it, it's one of those things where I mean yeah, I mean, yeah, it's super well made, and like the opening sequence is like really fun and visceral and impressive and jumpy and energetic and optimistic, and the climax is has like this kind of like beautiful,
Yes.
sort of I don't know, like sort of beautiful wrap up that it does, and how it's kind of conventional and unconventional, but I don't. I mean, and you can't take those sequences away from that film because like they are well executed openings and endings, but like everything in between, which is a pretty large, substantial amount, I just thought was fine. Like I just thought was like, and that's a pretty large chunk of the film for people to really be. What they're really saying is they loved like 10 minutes of the movie, but they're acting like the entire movie is a masterpiece. So I don't. I mean, I like it, but I
Yeah.
also think that I think that if that movie came out and Donald Trump hadn't been elected president like a month before that movie came out, or like right the week that movie came out, I think that movie actually would have been a flop. But because the world was in such disarray and everybody was so depressed that I think La La Land was a big success because people just wanted to smile and watch like two pretty movie stars dance and sing.
Yeah, that's the best take I've heard on fucking lava. Like, that's amazing, yo. Honestly.
Mm.
Um, I mean, now that we're talking about like movies from that time period, Drifter kind of was that 2014 or 2016? I forget.
2016, but it didn't get like released until like early 2017.
So with that film, was that film harder to shoot than the more recent films that had higher budgets? What's more like hard to shoot, low budget films or high budget films?
Um, well, I mean, yeah, I think it was a lot harder just because like, half of it was coming from my own money. So that was like an enormous amount of stress. But but also, I mean, like the physical constraints of that movie were very difficult because like, we were shooting in Bombay Beach 5 days of the schedule, and Bombay Beach is like just we're shooting in like dead of summer, so like the weather conditions were horrific. It was like 115 degrees, and we were doing like mostly outside stuff, and so like the weather was very difficult. The post production was pretty straightforward, um, but yeah, I think what was hardest about that movie is just like having no long term. We were kind of all on our own with this thing, and having no idea what the hell was going to happen with this. Whereas like the other projects, I mean, there was a pretty like, there was definitely like a pretty clear, solid idea for like how they were going to get released and who was going to pick them up. We were pretty confident. One of them had distribution before it was even shot, so like that helped. But with that project, it was all potential, so you just don't know. You just don't know what the hell was going to happen with it. So that was like probably the scariest part. Is like, is all this money just going to totally get wasted on this thing that no one gives a shit about, like that
Yeah.
no one wants to release or anything. So like that,
Yeah.
yeah, but like yeah, so like that definitely for a lot of reasons was harder for sure.
So like the train tracks were being built as the train was moving, type of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's that. But it's a noble risk that you did that for real. And I honestly like when I watched it, it gave me the same. I know I haven't seen the proposition, and I know that inspired it because I was like reading something about it. But it
Mm.
did kind of remind me of like a Apocalypse Now, like just the fucking, in my opinion, like a more
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Apocalypse Now is awesome. I mean, The Proposition's like one of my favorite film. I mean, so is Apocalypse Now, but like Apocalypse Now was like such an epic that I don't always want to like rewatch. But Proposition I've seen quite a few times. But I
what
love
is
both
it?
those movies.
What is the
The
proposition?
Proposition.
Fill me in.
It's this really like grimy, rough Australian like neo-noir western that came out like in 2005 with Guy Pearce and Danny Houston and Ray Winston and basically this guy is given a proposition by Danny Houston to Guy Pearce is given this proposition by Danny Houston, I'm sorry, not by Danny Houston, by Ray Winston to find Danny Houston and kill him, who's like this escape convict. And if he doesn't kill Danny Houston, then he'll kill Guy Pearce's younger brother, who's also, accused of some misconduct in the town. So like it's a real kind of like very like morally kind of fucked up movie about these like three different brothers that are kind of like turning on each other. And but it's just such a like the score is so hypnotic and unique. And if you liked that movie Lawless with Shia LaBeouf, which is not I don't think a great movie, but it's the same director and it's definitely his best film, in my opinion. So definitely check out The Proposition. It's fucking brutal and it's so good. It's so well made, but
Guy
it's just
Pearce
so
is the
unique.
shit. Guy Pearce is the shit
But
too.
he's awesome. I mean, Danny Houston's great. John Hurt's in it for a brief amount of time. It's really good. It's a really good like Australian. It's almost kind of like a horror film, like a Wolf Creek a little bit, like, and it kind of has it all. Emily, God, Emily, the fuck's her name? The woman from Breaking the Waves. Is it Emily Watson or Emily Watson's from Harry Potter, and Emily, never mind. Like the woman from Breaking the Waves was it like Emily? I get her mixed up all the time between Emily Watson and
Emily Watson. Emily Watson. Yeah, I just looked it up.
Emily Watson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Emily Watson from Red Dragon, Breaking the Waves. Yeah. She's great. Punch Drunk Love. But yeah, definitely check out the Proposition because it's awesome.
You're a big PTA fan, aren't you? I just mentioned Punch Drunk Love. I always see you post about PTA like all the time. Fall
Yeah, no,
Time Sanity,
I
yeah.
love. Oh yeah, no, I love PTA. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more else to say about him. I mean, I just and you know, like my favorite film of his is actually The Master, which is not a very popular choice, but it's just a film that kind of grew on me as I got older, and I like how it's not like super show offy. I like that he had the balls to just
Yeah.
not be like a big show off and just and not do There Will Be Blood and just kind of make something that's and you know like and it didn't 100% work for me when I first saw it, but it kind of like over time I just was absorbed by more I think from Joaquin Phoenix's performance and you know it's just kind of such a weird performance. Um but
It's a
yeah.
rough first watch though. It is.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but also I want to ask though, it is about Scientology. You lived in LA for 8 years. Have you met any Scientologists?
I don't think I don't know. I might have met them and I wasn't aware that they were, but
Yeah.
I definitely walked by numerous of them. My friend of mine, a friend of mine used to like live. His apartment was like the fucking backyard of this big Scientology museum, and so every time I would go to his apartment, there would be like a bunch of people getting out, like they were getting out of church, and like getting out of this museum, walking past his apartment with like their booklets, and it was like this big cult walking by his apartment, like in single line, and it was pretty funny.
That's dope. That's dope. Um, yeah, there's always like shit about like actors and acting classes, bringing people into Scientology and all this shit. Um,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah. So on filming movies, um, what's your favorite like technical aspect when shooting a movie that you specialize in or are just most interested in on set?
Um, like technical, like everything outside of the actors.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I really do. You know, I like shot listing. I mean, I do like the sort of, I like the process of it, even if it's not always stuff that we're going to be using, which more often than not happens. But like, I think I've getting a little bit more experience under my belt. Like, I've realized that like shot listing is you got to be so precise with that kind of stuff that you have to like first really do have to, you know, look at the location before you start doing a, you know, a proper shot list because otherwise it's just going to be like a prelim that you're not going to use at all. So like going to the location and then working with a cinematographer to, and sometimes the first AD to like, you know, just break down a realistic shot plan.
Yeah.
That I like, and kind of once we in a location, if we have time, we can walk through the shots. And for certain scenes, that process I really like. Anything that deals with like shot composition and trying to tell a story with the camera, and uh, so I mean, light, you know, understanding lighting is not like necessarily my forte. I mean, I mean, I have like comps and references. I have an idea of like how it should look, but like as far as like articulating it in a very mechanical sense, I don't know if I have that skill yet, but so I usually put a lot of that into my cinematographer. But as far as like shot composition, shot placement, that's definitely a collaboration for sure. But yeah, so like that's probably the biggest technical yeah, and that's probably the biggest technical aspect that's like an ongoing thing that I really like doing.
Do you like ever have you ever showed up to like a place and you're like, oh shit, like I cannot film here, or like like has that ever happened at all, or usually like really prepared? Or,
Um, no, I don't think we've ever had a situation like that where we just had to like turn around and just say, this is, I mean, there's been time. Well, actually, there was like one house that my production designer. This is when I was actually in New Jersey at the time, and my production designer was who lives in Los Angeles. Well, he lives in like Santa, or he lives in Simi Valley, but he drove out to LA um uh to check look at a house that was like in the woods for a possible location, and like the house was completely decimated. I mean, it was like if you could literally like smash through the floorboards, like if you were if you were walking hard enough on the depending on the kind of shoes you're wearing, and it was just like a complete decimated. It was literally unusable. It would have taken like months to like get the whole thing to
Yeah.
looking like a proper house. So that was probably, that's an example.
Was that for Devil's Workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so there's a lot of like mythology in some parts of it talked about like these creatures on the wall. I really liked that part. So you probably know a lot about mythology after like writing that film or some demons and shit like that because it's all kind of about demons, bringing the demons out of the dude. And what is your favorite like mythological creatures that you think should be adapted into films that kind of aren't there's not a light shined upon them that much in films or TV?
It's really it's a good question. Uh oh my God. I feel like I could think of like a really good question. I just have to do a little research. Um Mythological creature. Uh I mean, I mean, we don't really see like much of like Loch Ness monster. We don't really see much of Sasquatch. We haven't really seen, we haven't really
Yes.
like seen like legit cinematic adaptations of these fucking things because like they're always like these,
Documentaries.
yeah, there's like these like documentaries or these like god awful like found footage, which I've seen a couple of the Sasquatch ones, but like they're just, they don't. I don't think they really like. I want to see sort of like I want to see them do like a something like Crawl, but with like a Loch Ness monster, or like with like a proper like $12 million budget and Paramount releasing it. Like I want to say like proper uh
Idris Elba.
execution of that. Idris Elba, beast.
With the yeah, with the Ruger or shotgun,
Hmm.
whatever he had in that. Um,
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I did see that movie.
I never. It's kind of off topic, but I never knew he was British. I was watching The Wire. I'm gonna bring this back around something, but I was watching The Wire and I was like, yo, cannot believe Idris Elba is British. Like he's so. Have you seen The Wire? Are you a Wire fan?
Yeah, yeah. The first season, yeah.
Yeah, he's good in that. Now, you worked with the late Lance Reddick on Monster Party. Great part of that movie.
Yeah.
Did you have a role in casting him, and how was it working with him?
Uh, I mean, yeah. I mean, my manager at the time, his company repped Lance Reddick, and they were also packaging the film. So he was like literally the first person that came on. He came on in February of 2017, and so he was the first actor that. And yeah, he came into the office, and him and I had like a 3 hour meeting, and it was I remember we started off in one room, then they needed the room that we were in, then we moved over to the opposite side, and we went to another room and talked for another like hour and a half in there, um, and then we were like talking on the phone like for a couple times. Like he would call me at like random hours, like around like 8:30, 9 o'clock, just a couple questions about the character. And so we were very collaborative. There was definitely like there was I remember there was like one big scene that we were shooting in the foyer that was really kind of chaotic, and it was like the third day of shooting, so like the crew didn't even know each other's names, and like the first AD at the time was on his way to getting fired. So it was like really kind of chaotic, and there was a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts having to happen in the scene. And Lance Reddick, when we were, done with the scene and we felt like we had to move on. Lance Reddick, like the next day, we were shooting some additional stuff, and I brought up the scene that we just shot the day before, and he's like, he's like, I'm still not sure we got that. I'm still not sure we got that. And it was like, it was like crushing blow to my heart, like because it was such an important scene that him and I were talking about, and I like the scene now. Is it's That's why like you just don't know like how it's going to cut together until you like see it cutting together. You can't just like be in the middle of the scene or like look at the scene from like a producer's, you know, bird's eye view or whatever, and just look at what's being shot and just assume it's not gonna work when it's cut together. It's like you just don't know until you start cutting it together. So thankfully, I think, you know, because I know he was happy with the film. I mean, I got that was confirmed. So I was really, because I think he was a little because it was such a tight budget and it was such a tight shoot, and we were shooting so much stuff in such a fast amount of time that I think he was very a little overwhelmed that he wasn't used to this kind of pace, and that he was a little nervous that it was going to like jeopardize his performance a little bit. But I never thought it did. So yeah, he was definitely happy with the movie. But yeah, I mean, Lance was awesome. He just, you know, he took his work very seriously as he should. But but he was very cool. I mean, he said that he loved working on The Wire. He said it was one of the best experiences of his life. And he said when he did The Guest, that movie, The Guest, no idea that it was going to be as campy as it was when he saw like the, you know, finished product. He was like, "Oh, I had no idea it was going to be that kind of tone. I thought it was a way more serious tone than this." But so I was just, you know, just little funny anecdotes from him. But yeah, no, he was awesome.
Cam Strike killed it too. He was great. The ending, he was powerful in that. That ending was so well written. Like I don't even like I don't even. I was trying to think of a movie to compare the ending to, but like I can't. I mean, you probably have one because you wrote it, or maybe you just like fully, you know. But that ending was fucking awesome when he gets his dad out. That was with the katana. Like, dude, that was a great ending. Just letting you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like, and Sam Strike just like sells that so well, you know, because he's
Yeah,
such a, yeah, like the camera just loves him. You know, he just has a great presence, and I really want to work with him again. I mean, he doesn't live in LA anymore. He lives in, I think he lives in Long Island. So he's not too far from it. But yeah, 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 I've definitely gotten lucky with like the actors that I've worked with so far. I mean, like they've all been like really committed and really, you know, they just get the tone. So.
it's probably definitely due to like your experience because you worked for that company. What company was that?
It's a company called Roundabout Theater Company, and it was they own like 4 or 5 Broadway theaters. So I just saw like so many free Broadway shows over the course of like 3 years, but also like met so many, you know, aspiring actors and singers and musicians, and you know, because they were the kind of people that worked there.
Was that kind of like was that kind of like how you didn't go to the film school, so like is that kind of like how you learn uh like the entertainment industry, or how did that help a lot?
Um, I mean, I think it was more just it was a combination of just like making a lot of stuff, making an enormous amount of mistakes, um, uh, meeting a lot of people and just showing my stuff to a lot of people. And but I didn't really like know I didn't really know how like the industry worked necessarily until I got some representation to like kind of open the doors to me to show me how things were done.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge eye opener. For better or for worse. I mean, it was just like, you know, you kind of, you know, you just kind of see certain things that really kind of like rub you the wrong way. They're like, oh, so this is how this happens. Interesting. That really makes me depressed. Um, but
Yeah.
you know, there's also a lot of great things. You know, I mean, it's just because you just meet so many other, you know, talented raw artists and creators, and so there's a lot of you know, it's like just anything. It's just like 50-50 as far as like, you know, the good and the bad. Just
What's a good mistake that you've made that helped you learn a lot? Like I bet people don't want to say it, like they're always in interviews like, yo, like I did everything right, yo. Like I met this dude and like, but like you like I want to hear from you. Like, have you had a really humbling experience that like really allowed you to grow? Because I think those are the better stories to hear about.
yeah, I mean, you know, just I'm trying to think of like I mean, there's been a ton of like small ones, but I'm just trying to think of like I mean, you know, I think not being a little bit more uh certainly being I like I'm really like um I'm like I'm really open like during like the screenwriting process, and I am, you know, I'm definitely like very open during like post-production as well, but like there's like specific there sometimes like there's like specific things that I'm like kind of playing with in post-production, especially like the score, because like you know, constructing a scores can be constructing a score can be very frustrating in post-production when you have like rough cuts and rough mixes, because it's like it's and the edit itself is not done, so like the score just kind of feels disjointed, and some of the score is really good for the film but it's temp, and other score is not good for the film but that's also temp, so you're just trying to find that perfect score from beginning to end. So like that's in the past, like that seems to always be the kind of push and pull that I've had in post production of just trying to explain to them like, look, I'm just playing with things. I'm not trying. This is not what it's gonna. This is not even original stuff. This is not what it's going to be. This is just some sort of placeholder to get some sort of, you know, inspiration or vibe here. But you have to trust me that like the score is going to be, you know, much more of what we all want this to be when the time is right. It's just I'm just finding things right now. So like that's, but in the past I've been a little bit more um I don't know, like aggressive or something when people you know are not quite getting the scores or getting the music or whatever, like that kind of like really kind of aggravated me. Uh but you know, it's just it's just, you know, it's just my own thing, I guess. So yeah, just being a little bit more like upfront with people and kind of calming down a little bit, not feeling like I'm being attacked.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You do have like a specific kind of editing sometimes in your movies, like with fast cuts and cutaways, or just cuts in general with shit, kind of like
Yeah.
Mad Max with the car crash and he shuts his eyes and
Oh yeah.
I love that. I love that. The first Mad Max. When I first saw that, I was like, "Yo, like this editing is crazy." Like with the eyeballs, like before he dies.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's great editing. The Mad Max movies are like definitely I think a big like tutorial in just, you know, resourceful filmmaking, is at least like the first couple. Um but like the, you know, those movies are really certainly very unique, and it just I just like that Australian eye.
For filmmaking, yeah, they definitely have a lot of good um filmmakers there. Even old Peter Jackson stuff with the aliens that come to Earth for to fast food restaurants and they want to capture humans to sell them in their fat like or Taika Waititi's not. He's a New Zealandish, whatever. Um, Australians does have a lot of good filmmakers, and who else? There's somebody else. The dude, yeah, the
Um,
Peter Weir, the dude that did Dead
here
Poet
where it's great.
Society. Um,
Witness.
Mosquito Coast, I think. Everybody's telling me to watch that.
He did miss it. He did that. Yeah, I love Witness though.
What's Witness about? Oh, is that James Caan? No, 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 no. That's Thief. That's Thief. I'm bugging. Uh, Witness. Harrison Ford. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
he like
yeah.
seeks refuge in the Amish community.
Oh, I gotta watch that. I live near like Philly, so it's like we always we every now and then like whenever something's in Lancaster, it's like where it's like yo Mennonite, like
Oh yeah,
it's crazy to look
I
at, but
mean
it's cool.
check out Witness. It's a pretty damn good thriller.
So Chris, it's a very important question about because there's all these strikes going on and people complaining about money in the film industry. And I don't want to ask necessarily about that. We can go into it, but I want to ask: has the economics of the film industry changed since you guys started it? And is there something that's problematic about how money works in the film industry?
Well, I mean, before this year, I think you know, thankfully the strike has helped out um certain things moving forward. I feel like it was kind of inevitable. It's I mean, but like, you know, it's just, I mean, the 80s we had a strike about, you know, people ripping residuals away from people on VHS sales, like VHS taking over, and then the two like the mid late 2000s was a strike about what the DVD residuals, and then now it's like streaming residuals. So it's just I feel like we're just kind of and I don't what else is beyond streaming AI, which I don't know if that really has much of a future as far as like the creative side of things. But so I mean there's so many things wrong. I mean like there's I do think that I'm really shocked that it's still remaining a business. I mean, to be honest, I mean it's just like there's so many things wrong with the way Hollywood functions and works. So I don't um but at the same time great films come out every year. Uh so I mean there's something happening. But we never know like who's I mean you're never like I mean something like Blumhouse is a company that I do respect them, and I do like what they do. A lot of their films are films that are some of my favorites of the year they came out. But I think the movies that they come out, they release, like The Invisible Man or Get Out. I don't know if those necessarily are Blumhouse's doing. I think that's more just the team they got behind that one film
Yeah.
happened to be released by Blumhouse, and that film was really good. But I think the norm is not that with what they release, and they're kind of like a big budget, mainstream, polished version of like the Asylum, which is like the Sharknado company, that just like releases um, just below tier, but like they just want to continuously like generate content. And if one of them is like really successful, because they always have like a really successful film every year, sometimes it's a few. So it's like enough to justify their existence. And I think what they're doing is really smart. But Jason Blum is just like a brilliant businessman. Um, but there's just like I don't know to have like one answer to that question. I don't know. I mean, I don't. I'm just kind of like just I mean, everybody like yearns for the past or like an old version of Hollywood, but like no, I mean, I don't think it's ever really been. Uh, I mean, I think like everything post late '90s, 2000, I think has been practically like irreparable and it's just been going like downhill ever since. And I think like the strike and the pandemic and the Me Too movement to an extent, like all those things happening within from 2017 to 2023, all those things happening like really just I think was very important because like now we're living in literally a different world. And part of that world is like the entertainment industry of just like how it's almost unrecognizable, for better and for worse. So I mean, that seems like a pretty like complicated answer to that question, but it's just hard to tell, like, because the economics, they go up, they go down. It's just kind
Yeah.
of, I don't even know how to describe the economics of the entertainment industry. It's just like so um fickle and
Convoluted.
it just yeah, well like it should be a pretty very simple transaction, but
It's
you like
not.
this idea, I like this idea, let's go make something. But it's never that at all. It's like you like this idea, well I like this idea too, but I'm gonna get my lawyers in and they're gonna really complicate everything and then we're never gonna make this ever. That's really how it goes.
Yeah. That,
Um
that's what Bret Easton Ellis said about he has like he has like so many screenplays that he's just like sold that never get made, but all these companies are like gonna make a lot of money off of it one day, maybe, probably not. Yet he got like a quick bag for like writing like 10 screenplays or something, and none of them got only like one or only like three of his screenplays have been made or something like that. Um,
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them. He's not like I mean I love Brandon Snells, but he's not like I think the screenwriting that he does is more for like just primarily for like commercial reasons for him. I mean maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like at least the ones
Smiley
that he
Face
sold have
Killers,
been yeah, I mean like they just seem like they're I think there was like one other film that he had
Canyons
written.
with James Dean.
Uh was it?
He
The canyons. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of like another like kind of like a low budget horror film, like Smiley
there
Face
is
Stores. He
one
did
definitely. Bret
right. Yeah,
Easton
he did like
Ellis. Yeah, hold on. It's Curse of Downers Grove.
right. That was the one. Yeah, with Bella Heathcote. Right? Is she in that? Bella Heathcote.
Yes. Yeah, she's in
Yeah, the
there.
Australian actress. Yeah, I like her as an actress.
Shouts out
Um,
Australia again. Again. Australia. Australia's
she
killing it.
was on the Neon Demon. She was in. She was in Not Fade Away. She was the relic. Good
Mm.
actress. Very good actress.
Now on the topic of like screenplays, we were talking earlier about like editing, showing it to people. What's your process for getting feedback on screenplays, and how important is that when writing a screenplay?
Um, Yeah, I think I was really like bad about that stuff. Like in the beginning, yeah, I would like send people just like unfinished pages of a script that I wrote. Just like, hey guys, here's like the vibe. Here's like 10 pages of unfinished stuff that I haven't even polished, and just here it is. Can you give me feedback on these 10 pages? And so I was always like so anxious to like send something out to like show someone something that I've written, and obviously like that's like it's just a waste of time for everybody, including yourself. I mean, because they're gonna read it, they're gonna be like, oh well, there's some, they're gonna try to be nice, like, oh, there's some interesting stuff in here, but like just don't rush it. And so I used to be told that a lot, like just take your time, and then the opposite of that, I would like take almost too much time, and I would like, write like 5 pages a day, whereas like I mean that sounds like a lot to some people, but to me like that sounds like like I would spend like 5 years writing one screenplay, and so I just had to really accelerate and have like a routine of like writing like 10 to 20 pages a day and just get a first draft out within a week, and then I could start cleaning it up, and so I could just be on more of like a good, focused path on it and be more efficient about it. But as far as like getting feedback, once I have a script that I feel like is in a pretty good place to send people, which could take a while. It could take sometimes a year, to the point where you feel like the screenplay is like good to send to someone. Like this, you feel confident in the story and everything, and the character development, and you just, you want to see if things make sense, to an outsider, and that can be really scary. Like that's really daunting. Because with a script, I mean, there's like a bajillion things, a bajillion different paths that you could go down, because it's just the text on paper. It's not like an edit of a film or something. There's maybe like 4 or 5 paths, maybe, that you could take with that footage that you have. But
Yeah.
with a screenplay, it's like a billion different ideas someone could have, and so that can be really overwhelming. And I think when someone gives you feedback, especially when they're, it's like, I've worked with definitely like some like really like smart producers with like really smart thoughts, and understand the fundamental. And but I think when and I understand the gist of what they're telling me when they bring up a note, but when they start giving me like specific ideas of how to fix it, I would just kind of like stop listening. And I used to listen to every single tiny little thing that they would suggest me doing, and I would try to put all of it into one script, which is the worst thing that you could possibly do. Now I just, it's like, all right, if there's like one resounding note, and like this story thing doesn't work, this opening is bad, this ending doesn't make sense, or whatever, or this character needs like a little bit more to them, just. But if they try to give you like specific ideas, like, well, maybe the main character works as like an orderly in a hospital or whatever, just, I mean, occasionally it could be like, oh wow, that's an amazing idea, but like most of the time it's not, and you do have to just take the breadcrumbs of what they're saying and just find your own solution. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I think you dig in a ditch for yourself, and you're just going to create more problems, because you're gonna be like, well, why'd you listen to me? That was a terrible idea. I don't even remember saying that idea. Why did you put that in here? um, which has happened.
Mm.
So like that's, and but like I'm much more like with a screenplay. I, writing, I mean, when you're making a movie, like you could have like your own unique aesthetic and all that, and that no one else has. Like you have your own cinematic voice or whatever, like where you place the camera and the kind of actors you cast. But like with a screenplay, it's like you're you're like you're like bottom bitch, just like everybody else. And not to say you are when you're making a movie too, but like when you're writing a screenplay, that is just hard fucking work. And you're just and so is making a movie. But like with a screenplay, I mean, there's no you can't manipulate a viewer with like a cool soundtrack or a cool performance or really interesting production designer, cinematography, or whatever. It's like you don't have any of that stuff at your disposal. Like all you have is the blank page, and you just have text and dialogue, and and it better be paced well, and it better be tight, and it better be good, and because if it's not, I mean, you're just going to get eviscerated because like people, if they don't like it, they might not even like respond to you. Like they'll just because like it's not even worth their time. So I mean, I think so. Long story short, answer short, when you're getting feedback on a screenplay, definitely be open, very open, but also understand your story and the tone of it. And so don't just like take every single idea that someone gives you and try to like combine them all because then you're just gonna like it's gonna be an absolute colossal waste of time. So just know the tone of your movie before you start getting feedback. Like understand what this is so you can understand what kind of feedback to process and which ones to cherry pick and which ones make sense and which ones don't. And so just know
Yeah.
what kind of movie you're making.
Who knows where Robert Rodriguez's career would have been if he would have took the advice to redo El Mariachi with a electric guitar and have him be the gangster in the like it's like they like he got all these bad ideas when he pitched it to companies. They were all like, change this, change that, do it in English. And it's like, no, like he stuck to
Yeah,
his movie with that. I
yeah.
respect that.
I mean, just I definitely have like respect for the people giving it because especially if someone like read your screenplay, which is definitely like you know a big thing for them to do to begin with, and if they like read your screenplay from front to front to back, just give them the respect that they took the time to do that, and don't be so guarded and because like getting notes, getting feedback can be really, especially the first go around, can be really overwhelming.
Yeah,
So just but I don't, everybody's different. They all process things different. I think it's just better with time, just more experience of getting more and more feedback over more and more projects. And you just kind of, you never fully get used to it, but it just always gets a little bit better that first go
comfortable.
around because sending that link, or sending that PDF file to that first couple people in an email to get feedback on, it's always really scary once you hit click, once you hit send, because you just don't know if that email is going to come back within a couple hours from then, or you're going to wake up to it at like 5 in the morning the next morning to like this huge email of like, oh my God, this didn't work for me at all. It's terrifying. It's always like it's a terrible like but it has to be done. It's a necessary evil.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is scary. It is kind of scary. And I haven't even worked on much, and it's like I can't imagine how scary it gets when it's like there's more stuff people involved and more professional, but it's what has to be done. Now, as a writer, you've written many characters. What would you say are the most interesting to you characters that you have written? Top three, maybe?
Um, I like I'll do three from each movie. I like the character of Lados from Drifter, which he was like the guy that was kind of like the greaser looking psycho that had the girlfriend, like the big guy.
Hmm.
Um then I also liked probably Lance Reddick. I mean, I was really like happy with what he did. His character, I thought yeah, I was really yeah, he was definitely like a interesting, and because he was never supposed to. He just Lance just like brought like a whole other he just brought a whole other like legitimate weight to that character that may or may not have been fully on the page, but it was there enough. But he just like totally he did exactly what an actor should do and just bring it beyond the page, and Something that's pretty cool and cinematic. And then I think with Workshop, I'd say probably like I go back and forth between like Emil Hirsch's character or Rodman Mitchell's character. I mean, I like them both a lot, but I think Emil Hirsch's character is just like I just always thought it was funny that like this actor that who certainly when I was going to high school, I mean, he was one of my favorite actors. I mean, he was in so many of my favorite films and has worked with like some like really like stellar some of my favorite directors and he's worked with like such like high class quality stuff in the past and then just to put him in this role where he's playing like this like smug face, overly cocky, kind of like amateur mediocre actor. That all he cares about is like his TikTok videos. I thought was kind of funny, satirizing his kind of alter ego in a way, or almost playing a like a heightened alternative version of himself. I thought was kind of interesting. So probably between him and Rod Mitchell, her character, because they're both kind of like I don't know, like a satirical representation of actors and creatives, and so so I mean, like it's a hard question to answer. It's like I like a lot of characters. Um, Yeah, I guess it's just a bit of like, right now, like those are my top ones for sure. And there's not that many in Workshop, um, but definitely those two in Workshop.
I love when characters bring like a taste of their own like personality into the role. I think people want actors to be like chameleons sometimes, and yes, that is necessary. Like for I like most characters in a movie, but every now and then it is good to like have someone bring their own personality on the screen that you can tell. Like you see them in the interview, and you're like, oh, you definitely like act like this person. Like the guy Fez from Euphoria, like sounds exactly the same in
Yeah.
interviews. Rest in peace,
All
Angus
right. So
Cloud.
yeah, he has a new
Definitely.
film coming out about a lottery ticket, and everyone's like, there's like someone who wins a lottery ticket in like this little gas station market, and there's like other characters there that hear about the win, so like they just take the gas station market hostage in order to like claim the lottery ticket for themselves. So it's kind of like a dog eat dog contained thriller. So it's pretty great. I mean, it was at Fantastic Fest. But I
Your
love when
lucky
actors
day.
kind of like that's it. Yeah,
Got good reviews.
yeah.
There we go. I'm gonna check this out. I like Euphoria, but I think that um I like it a lot, but honestly, my Euphoria was Degrassi. I did
Right.
like Euphoria. Were you a Degrassi? Like, what's a show like Euphoria that you watched like as a kid, like that just like really you digged?
Um, well, the funny thing about Degrassi is that like I have a friend of mine that was on like 8 episodes of that.
No,
Um, he played Damien. He was like a token. I don't want to really, but his name's Mason Elsidic. He was, if you look him up, and he was in like 7 or 8 episodes, like probably like early mid 2000s era.
Damian Hayes, Damian Hayes.
Yeah, Damien
Uh,
Hayes. Yeah, I'm.
okay, let's
He's been
see.
like one of my best friends since like 2006.
That's amazing. All right, where's it? Where's it at? Oh yeah, that's cool. That's awesome, yeah. That show's
Did I have
good
a
though.
show like before you? Yeah, yeah. I mean, Kevin Smith, I know is a huge fan of it. I mean, I don't. I did watch. I mean, I do remember like I wouldn't say these were like my shows that I watched on a religious basis, but like I definitely remember watching like random moments of like Savannah Heights and Melrose Place and 90210, like the 90s versions. And those were, I mean, Euphoria is basically like, Melrose Place on steroids, really.
And
I
kids.
mean, yeah. I mean, I see that comparison a lot. I mean, like, I don't, I get it from like a thematic angle, but as far as like the execution or like the tone or like the kind of grit, I don't think I think Kids is just like in another stratosphere as far
It's
as like
better.
that kind of authenticity. Yeah, definitely, 100%.
I just
Um,
rewatched it last night. That was oh my God. I don't know why I'm like rewatching it. It's kind of unhealthy. Um, I've only seen it twice, so
Mm.
it's not that deep. I watched the documentary about it. That is crazy. They like made no
Oh,
money
when
off
we
of
were
it.
kids. Yeah. How'd you? It's called When We Were Kids, right?
Yeah, have you seen it?
No, I don't know where to find it
Um,
because I know it exists. I just can't find it. Well, I haven't really looked that.
archive.org.
Is that like a streamer, like a torrent site?
Basically, like if you have like any book that you like want to read, just go to archive.org and they have like or archive.com, I don't know, but just you can just look up We Were Once Kids on there and you can like download the
Yeah,
MP4 and it's crazy, yo, like
yeah. I'm sure I'll be able to find it.
yeah, it's free. You just look at just archive.com or but it's that movie did not half of the actors like the main actors went really like in a great direction in their life and were very successful, but half of them like just became like drug addicts and suicidal and like didn't make any money off of it or and it's like
Yeah,
and also like the you have this like 54-year-old dude like he all hung out with them for like a year before the movie. He would just hang out with them and like give them weed and shit and take pictures of them. And then he was like, "Yo, Harmony, write this screenplay about all these kids you hang out with." And then he eventually talked some people into it, and then got all of them to shoot it. Like everything is real in that movie. Like the fucking 8-year-old smoking weed. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, like, and it's not. That's not even like my favorite film of his. I mean, Bully is still. I think Bully is like a vastly superior experience because it just has like a stronger story to it. But people never seem, and it's always kids for them. But Bully, I think, is just a more successful
That's where they kill the
version of
bully,
that.
right?
Hmm. Well, it's a true story. I mean, I read the book too, and I think the guys that played the actors, the people that were played by the actors look nothing like the actual actors. Like the actors, just I mean, they're just much better looking than the people that they played, um, which I think worked well because like the actors were good looking portrayals, but they still had a grit to them as well. Um, So yeah, I love it. I've seen that a lot more times. And then there's like Ken Park, mm, these other like way more obscure ones.
Ken Park, good. I haven't seen it.
So I mean, it's good if you're like 18 years old and you're obsessed with getting obscure bootleg copies of films off eBay that are banned in every single country. And you watch it out of morbid curiosity. In that case, it's very good because that's what I did. But as far as like um I mean, it's like if you're like a Larry Clark fan and you're just morbidly curious, I think it's worth watching. Because I was at that age in my life where I was like so obsessed with like, watching the taboo stuff that like is banned from all over the fucking world. Uh, so that was like in that era when I was watching all those kind of film like Irreversible and a Serbian film and Ken Park, like watching all these different. Um, but Ken Park is definitely like it's a very peculiar film because it's not like even a film necessarily. It's like a bunch of like individual vignettes, and none of it really connects very well. It doesn't taste like a movie,
Mm.
um, and because there's moments in there that will stay in you for a long time.
What this year have you seen that you think is worth people's time watching if they haven't seen it? What films this year that came out would you say are really good?
Well, I just saw Godzilla minus one. I saw that in the theaters yesterday. Which
Right, right.
yeah, I mean, I thought it was really fun. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was surprised. Um, Yeah, I was definitely surprised by like some like because like the quality of the film felt so elegant and classy, and then there's like moments of like guys getting like chomped, chomped by the Godzilla and get thrown like 100 feet away. So it's like it was out and like the classic like bomb bomb, like the classic like Godzilla score, like the cue, like you just them juggling that balance of tones, I thought worked really well. And maybe that had to do with like them speaking a foreign language. Maybe that, just like their sensibility is so much more hyperbolic that maybe it just kind of worked more for me. But I'm not as high on it as everyone else, but like I did like it. And I probably would watch it again, like if it was like with my dad or something. So I would recommend that. But like also Killers of the Flower Moon is probably my favorite film of the year. I saw it in theaters and I never got up. I had to pee for 2 hours and never got up. And the same thing happened with The Irishman for me too. So obviously these 3.5 hour movies from Scorsese are working for me, but I know they don't work for a lot of people. But I love
Same.
Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah, I liked it more than The Irishman. I just love the story. I just love the story a lot. I thought the story was super interesting. Um, so
Necessary
yeah,
too.
yeah. I just like wish like people more, I mean, it did like okay, but it was never gonna like be like a big box office juggernaut. I mean, I think Apple knew that, and um, they just gave it its respect of like giving it a theatrical run. But I think I wish more people had seen it in theaters because I do think it's worth if you could stomach it with your bladder. I think it's worth going to experience it
With
on the
your
big screen.
with your bladder. Yeah. No, yeah, and
I
also
mean,
they knew
I
like
had
they were
people
gonna
like,
put it on Apple Plus, so it's like they're like if it doesn't make a big profit at the theaters, it's like who cares? Like we have it on our streaming service, so you know.
yeah, I mean, like I don't, I mean, I'm just, I mean, it looks. I mean, the whole like like Netflix putting out The Irishman and like Apple putting out Kills of the Flower Moon. It's like I mean, these it's like Apple behind Napoleon too. Like these movies don't look anything less than like a theatrical experience that you'd expect from an A-lister like this. So it's like just because a streamer is eventually putting out within like 4 weeks of it coming out in the theaters doesn't really isn't really like doesn't feel like a big insult to me because I'm like these films, like these films look like masterful theatrical experiences. So
Yeah.
I just like to go see the theaters before they go to streamer. It just depends, it just depends on who's behind them. Napoleon is a film that I wish I did see in the theaters, and I probably still can. I just haven't gotten
Steel
around
Pro.
to it because I did want to see that in the theaters. Uh, but Godzilla minus one was on my radar because I knew I had to see that in the theaters because like everybody was raving about it. So, but I did like that. I mean, I saw Barbie and Oppenheimer, which I actually probably preferred Barbie more than Oppenheimer a little bit.
All right, you're trifling for that. What? All right, come on. All right. I'm not gonna be mad at you, but that's a crazy take. I have not heard that. I haven't seen Barbie, so maybe I'm wrong. So
I mean, I didn't like, I wasn't like blown away by either film. But Barbie, I don't know, I just had a lot more. Well, it's such, I mean, they could not be more different films. So it's like, I mean, to say I like this more than that, it just doesn't, it's not
doesn't make
really like
sense
a
to you.
fair argument because like they're just such completely opposite experiences. And I liked Oppenheimer. I mean, um, but I do think, but these film, I mean, I say this after like just thinking about Killers of the Flower Moon, but like generally speaking, like 3 hour films really kind of annoy me because I just feel like there's such few of them that justify that length. And unless you're like Scorsese, unless you're like Paul Thomas Anderson or Quentin Tarantino, where you can have the hours of filmmaker to build up that pacing and have it keep on building and building. And but most people don't have that skill. It's a very like rare skill to acquire. And so you see a lot of these films where it's like, dude, like why why does this have to be 2 hours and 55 minutes? Like, why? Why does it have to be that long? Um, so like that's, and I feel like we're seeing a lot of them lately. So, uh, so yeah, like that's always kind of frustrating, but I feel like that's probably not really going to go away. But I feel like there's always going to be like really long films that get released. I think the bigger the budget, the longer the film's going to be because they want to make sure that like every penny is on that screen, and they're not going to like cut out scenes or whatever. So like that.
Yeah.
But Kills of the Fire Moon definitely. I'd say definitely. I mean, I don't see that really changing. I feel like that's. I mean, I haven't seen a ton of films this year, but like that, I'd say that's probably a good candidate for my favorite film.
Yeah. I agree with you on that statement too. I think it's definitely I gotta rewatch it again though. I gotta rewatch it again, but I think
Yeah, I do
best
want to see it
movie.
again. Yeah, yeah.
Um, Other than that, though, do you have any announcements or films you're working on that you could speak on before we wrap this up?
No, I mean it's just like these like it's really. I mean, it's really these two specific scripts I figured like the only ones worth talking about. Like I said, like one is a sniper cat and mouse thriller, which is probably more of like an action thriller um, than a horror film. And then the other script is like more of like a Christmas horror, kind of like a kind of has like tonal elements, kind of like maybe like fits in the family of films like Freaky and Happy Death Day and
Mm,
Totally Killer, maybe like fits more into like that family as far as like Christmas horror. So yeah, like those two scripts I think are the ones that I'm certainly the most confident one. Like one I wrote by myself, the other one I co-wrote with someone who's in Los Angeles. So I mean there's a couple other ones as well, but like they're still pretty early in their development. So those two scripts definitely the ones that certainly want to push one of them out after Sundance.
I'm excited to see these films, and it was great talking to you, man. Like, second interview, audience, check out the old one. Thank you. I'm gonna call you after this. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And my friend here, social media is down, but I can probably still find the link to it. So if you're watching this weeks from now, it still might be up. I'm also going to link his IMDb and his website where you can find articles that he's written on. I'm pretty sure there's a link somewhere. I'll link your articles too because I think people should write them. I think you're a great writer. And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's yeah, good time. And yeah, I'm sure we'll do it again.
We will. Like, comment, share, subscribe to Pollute Your Soul, and peace out.